Ifrikya FM audience everywhere, we are here once again at this international summit held of Algeria and Africa. This important summit held with the Friends of the Algerian Revolution here at the Awrasi Hotel in Algiers. I have the pleasure to receive with me here Samia Nkrumah, the daughter of the late President of Ghana, Nkrumah, who was also part of the Algerian Revolution, as he met a lot of people there and he learned a lot, and it inspired also the revolution in Ghana. So we're going to take more insights about this and to learn the details with my guest today. I have pleasure to have you here with me. Thank you for accepting our invitation, Samia.
Thank you very much. And it's a great honor for me to be in this great country, which is an example for all of us Africans, an example for resistance, for maintaining the principles of the struggle against all kinds of oppression.
Indeed. My first question to you, Samia, is about your late father, who was a great inspiration for the Ghanaian people, also as he was the first president of Ghana. What can you tell us about the Algerian Revolution, how it played a role at inspiring your late father to revolutionize the country into what it is today?
Indeed, the association between our father, Kwame Nkrumah, and the people of Algeria goes back to the beginning, the late 50s. Ghana, as you might know, became independent in 1957. Take note of the date, yes. 57. It was one of, if not, I believe, the first country south of the Sahara Desert to gain independence. So we were one of the pioneers, actually. And immediately after Ghana's independence, we held two main conferences, the All African Peoples Conference and the Independent African States Conference. And when our father met with Frantz Fanon and the other independence leaders, he was very impressed with him, and he became very involved in the Algerian situation, to the extent that he gave Frantz Fanon an office, so as the emissary or ambassador of Algeria, the Algerian people, even before Algeria's war or revolution ended, before Algeria became formally, officially independent. Ghana had recognized Algeria and the FLN as a state. So that gives you an idea of how committed our father was. Also, when there was, in the 60s, when there was a plan by France to test an atomic bomb in the desert on Algerian land, Kwame Nkrumah was one of those who protested and spoke out against it and made sure it does not happen. So for me, this is a great example of the unity amongst Africans, but particularly between the Arab North Africa and the countries south of the Sahara Desert. So our father would say in one of his speeches that the great Sahara Desert must not divide us, but rather unite us. And that, in fact, Ghana's independence was meaningless unless it was linked with the total liberation of the whole continent. He said this in 57 when he was announcing our independence. So he was telling Ghanaians, our independence is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of Africa. So what I'm trying to say is the whole idea of decolonization in the continent, it was born with a purpose for us to unite. Once we gained independence, then we are free to unite, because colonialism came with we call it balkanization, dividing us into small countries which are not viable economically. We have to understand that we were deliberately divided so that we cannot be economically strong and independent. So if we've managed to end colonialism, then the next step is for us to unite our efforts to build our industries, to build our infrastructure, our education, everything, every aspect of our life. And the future of Africa, I mean, what young people in particular, because they are going to take the reins. Young people must understand that the mission of their generation is for Africa to unite, for Africans to work together in all avenues, all sectors, to make sure that we can provide a better standard of living for our people. So that's the next, let's say, the next challenge, the next struggle is how to develop our countries, take it to another level. Now that we have at least sovereignty, some countries, of course, have more than others. So back to Algeria, one of the things we all admire about this great country is that they are self-reliant. They have maintained the principles of the struggle, and this has made Algeria stand out as a strong country, not only because it's huge geographically, the biggest country, I think, today geographically. It is one of the countries with a big population, and it is also one of the strongest countries in terms of speaking with a voice, with courage, and with consistency in its fight against oppression.
When we are talking about the fight against oppression and being the voice of the voiceless, Algeria has indeed contributed a lot. However, this event happening today, gathering the friends of the revolution to find new solutions for the prosperous future. What is your insight about Algeria's efforts to build the future together with different African nations, especially the friends of the revolution, I think?
We are here, it might seem that we are talking about the past only, but we are talking about the past so that we can be inspired and gain some insights as to how we can work together in the present. Because as we say, I mean, there's a saying, the past is the present and the present is the future. So our meeting today, it's about going back to see how it happened, how we united to defeat colonialism, and pick up those values, those ideas, those principles, so that we can face today's challenges, the challenges we have today. And without doubt, particularly for smaller countries, the main challenge for us today is how to gain sovereignty of our economy, how to gain sovereignty in every aspect of our lives, so that the wealth we have, our natural wealth, our agricultural wealth, our mineral wealth, even our wealth in being the youngest continent. I mean, that's one of our resources. But how can we channel that energy, channel that dynamism, channel that wealth, natural wealth? How can we channel it into better living conditions for our people? You see, that is the challenge today.
Indeed it is, and your late father Nkrumah had a lot of insights and ideas about the Pan-Africanism. So can you share some insights that your late father left for you with our audience?
Indeed. In fact, I wish some of his books, like Africa Must Unite, would become required reading or in the curriculum in schools in Africa, because he gave us the blueprint for unity, and he said that African unification must be political and economic. He said, and that kind of unity must have three objectives. So we need to, number one, we need to plan our economy on a continental base. And he gave even some examples, like there's a dam in the Congo, a proposal for a dam from the 60s, the Inga Dam. He said no one country alone can build it because this is a huge country and it's so expensive. But if a few countries come together, they can build it. So we need to plan our economies together. For example, Ghana is a big producer of cocoa, cacao. Now, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire also producing. But most of our cocoa goes out of the continent in its raw form. But the people, the countries that transform it and process it into chocolate and other products, if you measure the trade, the money you get from trading in the cocoa, raw cocoa or cocoa powder, you are talking about millions. But the money you get from trading in cocoa products like chocolates is in the billions. So that is the task ahead of us. We need to unite to build our industries.
Of course, unity is the secret.
Yes, absolutely.
And today the youth are trying to learn a lot. And how do you see this youth building or going to contribute in the future in Ghana as well as in Algeria?
Okay. But before I come to that, because I started by saying there were three objectives: economic, continental economic planning, that we plan everything we want to do with our economy together, and that will include common markets, common currency. In fact, what we are discussing today, the Continental Free Trade Agreement, that was mentioned in the 60s, yes, ages ago. Now, number two, the second objective is to have a unified foreign policy. So we have one voice on international affairs. So, for example, on the question of Palestine, what is happening today, the genocide, the humanitarian crisis, we would have contributed to this crisis, one of humanity's crisis today, if Africa could speak clearly with one voice. Number three, another thing he advised us to work together is to build a Pan-African army and to have agreement on military and defense pacts. Rather than have pacts with anyone, we should have it amongst ourselves, so that we can have one military high command, one Pan-African army that will be deployed when we have crisis, as we are negotiating ourselves out of some conflicts. Africa today has many conflicts, but we always get people from outside to intervene, to sort them out. So I am just trying to say that old original concept of unity is something young people have to revisit, to look at again. We know people say it's difficult to achieve political unity, but every major decision we make economically requires politicians and policies to make it a reality. So in our heads, we must not separate political from economic unity. And our father's definition for Pan-Africanism was the total liberation and unification of Africa under a union government. So on certain things, there has to be central authority.
This is a very interesting idea, and actually could be effective. And turning from this topic, we go to talk about the decolonization because it's an essential part in what you were saying. And talking about decolonization, of course, there are two big important issues happening at the International Court of Justice currently. Among them, there is the Palestinian issue as well as the Western Sahara. So, what do you have to say about these two nations that been oppressed since ages and ages on end?
No, today, as I keep on saying, these months we are all Palestinians because we've never seen this, the extent of the, I don't know what to call it, but it is genocide. It is a serious humanitarian crisis, and it's a dark spot in our history, in our times, and something must be done to stop it. And it will only stop when more and more voices, countries and voices come out. We are proud of South Africa that they took the Israeli state to the International Court of Justice. And so it took a black African country to take that step because everybody, all the Arab and African world, everybody helped South Africa to defeat apartheid. And South Africa has never forgotten that. So we are proud of her that she took that initiative. Now, we can solve the Western Sahara question. There has to be a referendum. As we know, we are waiting for that referendum to happen as per the UN resolutions. And I'm very hopeful that with negotiations we can solve the Western Sahara question, and that one day there will be a state of Sahrawi Republic. It must happen. And I believe that if African states take up this matter on their own, without any interference from outside, we are going to make progress.
Thank you. Thank you for this insight you shared with us, Samia. However, any last word you'd like to say to our listeners who would be listening to you, or also to our viewers?
Okay. You asked a question before I went back.
Yes, about the youth. About the youth.
Yes,
How do you think the youth would contribute to these things happening currently to the future?
As you know, today the average African is a young person. The average African is a young person. Yeah, so we are the youngest continent. And this is another blessing, I think, for Africa. And so, but what we need to do, therefore, is that in all our policies, in all our thinking, we should prioritize what the youth need today. But in doing that, we need to reorient our thinking. The young people have, and all of us, we need to reorient our thinking to conceptualizing or imagining what the African nation can be. Because can you imagine 1.3 billion people plus the African diaspora all over the world, 1.5 billion people. Can you imagine the economic power we are going to be if we start working seriously together? So this is the challenge and the task ahead for young people. Can African unity be a reality in their lifetime? And I think that's a question every young person must think, because we'll all be beneficiaries of that unity.
Thank you, Samia Nkrumah, for your insights that you shared with us today. And dear listeners, don't forget to stay tuned for more interviews to come with other languages. This is Emmanuel tuning out.